Hi there YouTube, Big G, back again with another video. Do you remember this line?
It's a bird, it's a plane, it's Superman!
Is it a bird? Is it a plane? No, it's Superman, or something like it. Now, I mean, that's a classic line. It always reminds me of back in the day, watching those cartoons and so forth, when you weren't sure about something, or it made itself up to be something else. And that sort of reminded me, or actually what sparked it off, I watched one of Tony's videos now recently. He did on a pickup for a system, a Dick Smith Creative Vision system. Now, back in the day, you were either a console guy, you were into consoles, Mega Drives, the NES and so forth, or you were into your computers. You know, you had a Commodore 64, a Spectrum, or Spectra Video. But sometimes there was a gray line. There were some systems that were hybrids. Was it a computer? Was it a console? Or was it both? A bit of both. And that got me thinking about the systems that I have in my collection that are, call them hybrids, in inverted commas, because really, you know, it is sort of up to interpretation what they are. But are they a console? Are they a computer? Are they both? Or which one do they excel at? So I've pulled out 4 systems over here, and I thought we'd take a look at them, have a look at them. Maybe you had some of them back in the day. I certainly find these hybrid systems to be very, very interesting. And also because they're a bit different. And also because of the fact that they offered a bit of both worlds. Now, way back in the day, the only way you could really convince your parents to get you a computer was the fact that it was educational, that you could use it to learn and so forth. So therefore, it had to have a keyboard. Or if it was a console, it was only for playing games. So yeah, that was sort of a different way that you played it. And that's why I got a Spectrum 48K and I got a Spectra Video, was that it had a keyboard and yeah, it could be used for learning and so forth. So that sort of convinced my parents. It wasn't just a games machine. But these hybrids also had a bit of both in them. And I'm sure back in the day, kids played on that part, that it's not just a games machine. It's also got a keyboard and so forth. But let's have a look at these very interesting old systems. Okay, first up, the Philips VideoPack G7000. What a great console. Or is it a computer? I mean, it's got a keyboard. It's got the slot for the cartridges. It had some really great games in the day. So which was it? What was it? And so forth. Well, anyway, the G7000, it came out in 1978. And I can specifically remember the G7000 because I used to belong to the G7000 club, even though I never owned one. But the cartridge that I got, I used to go down to my cousin's place and I used to go and play there. And to be honest, I only ever played games on the Philips G7000. This keyboard over here, actually, there wasn't really much else you could use it for. There were some educational titles that you could use this keyboard for. Basically, it was a really terrible keyboard. I mean, these are horrible, these keyboards. So it's not really practical for doing anything else. But there was a cartridge that it came out with back in the day. It was called Computer Intro or Computer Programmer, depending on whereabout you were situated in the world. And you could use it to sort of do like a pseudo assembler language type-ins and do certain things. I watched 1 or 2 videos. There's not really much that you can see that you can actually do with that cartridge. I think it was more of a novelty than anything else. I certainly couldn't find any programs that were written or any sort of anything that was really done using that cartridge besides the demos that it came with. But the Philips G7000, a hybrid system, I don't think so. I think it's just a console with a keyboard and nothing much else. Okay, let's move on to another really interesting system. Okay, the good old Atari 2600. But what is attached to it? There we are. You have the Spectra Video Compumate. Now, the Spectra Video Compumate was an add-on keyboard, but it came with a cartridge. Now, that cartridge had specific programs that were designed that were actually you could use on them. And those 3 programs were Magic Easel, which is sort of like a drawing and animation program. It also had a music composer so that you could actually then go and compose music and so forth. and then it had Microsoft Basic. So yes, it's got a basic. Can you program with it? Theoretically, yes. But the problem with the Compumate attached to the Atari 2600, I'm not going to take that top off. That actually looks quite nice having the cartridges and the joysticks and so forth there. What was a clever idea, but it was sort of hamstrung with the fact that it had to use the hardware for the Atari, which was very, very basic. So any listings that you wrote, and you could theoretically write listings, basic programs for it, but very, very, not much that you could really do with it. I had a look and I really couldn't find much besides doing the old classic Hello World and something like that. So the Spectra Video add-on, the Compumate add-on to the Atari 2600, does it turn the Atari 2600 from a console into a computer, a hybrid of some sort? No, I don't think so. So the Atari 2600 is a console, stays a console, and it has a novelty keyboard, nothing much else. Okay, let's move on to the third system. Now, this is a really interesting system over here. I haven't taken it out of its box. Now, this is the Telfunking, excuse me, still recovering from a bit of flu. This is the Telfunking Creative Vision. Now, Tony did a great video the other day with the Dick Smith Creative Vision. Basically the same thing. In South Africa, it was a Telfunking. In Australia, it was the Dick Smith, and so forth. But this was a great console that also had the ability to add, you can see here, you could add a keyboard add-on to it. And theoretically turning a console into a computer. Now, the controllers, you can see on there, also had that sort of like a keyboard on there that you use to choose the different games. Theoretically, you could use that, your controllers, put them together and use them as a keyboard as well. Also another novelty, but basically just a novelty that was there. So it came out in 1982. Now, I did a bit of browsing and I actually found a lot of listings using the cartridge, that basic cartridge that you could add to this. Now, I've got the basic cartridge, but I've never really tried to do any programming with it. But guess what? You can actually do some really nice programming. It's got a better memory and it takes better use of the actual hardware of the console itself, and it does allow you to enter programs. I mean, I put up a list over here, and having a look at some of the screenshots, you can actually see it's actually not bad. So the Creative Vision, is it a console? Is it a computer? Is it a hybrid? Well, in actual fact, you can actually use it as a computer. So yes, I would say this is a genuine hybrid system. You could actually use it really as a computer or as a console standalone. So very, very interesting. Actually, one of my favorite systems, because the games are actually really good. If you take some time to set it up and so forth, you can have a lot of fun with the Creative Vision. Okay, moving on. So we've done the G7000, we've done the Atari 2600, the Telfunking Creative Vision, and that leaves just one system that's sort of different in my collection. And that is one of my really favorite systems, and that is the Atari XEGS, the Atari XEGS system. It's basically an Atari 800 XL because it's got 64 KB of memory. It came out in 1987 as well. And the interesting thing about it is that, yes, you could unclip the keyboard. And let me just unclip the keyboard here without dropping it. There we are. So you had a console. It could actually stand alone on the console. I love the big colored buttons that it has here, the start and so forth. So you could play your console, your Atari games, and there's some really nice Atari games, Pac-Man, Invaders, and so forth, using just the console and then the joysticks that plug in on the side. Or add the keyboard and you're back to having a computer. So yeah, what is the difference between this and, let's say, an Atari 800 XL? The fact that you can do away with the keyboard and use it just as a console, which is sort of a gimmick in a sense. because I mean, you could do that. You could play all the games with the Atari 800 XL. But actually, it does make it slightly different. Well, I believe it makes it slightly different in that it gives it that lovely console look about it without the keyboard. So yes, definitely a hybrid system, definitely a console, and definitely a computer. Because I mean, we all know the Atari had some really great software on it, and the programming on it was great. It definitely was one of the better systems from back in the day. And the Atari XGS is definitely one of my favorite systems in my collection, going back to the 8-bit. Okay, guys, well, that's it from me. I thought it'd be quite interesting looking at these four systems. Maybe you've got some of them in your collection as well. Systems that could be consoles, computers, hybrid, a bit of this, a bit of that, sort of a jack of all trades. Um, I find them very, very interesting, great fun to play with. But I must say, I think out of the four systems, my favorite is definitely the Telfunking Creative Vision, simply because it was a sort of a South African flavor to it, being Telefunken. But I think out of the four systems, the most practical of them would have been the Atari XGS system. Not very popular, but still very, very interesting. And I must say, I do love these big buttons on there. Okay, guys, that's all from me. Cheers, and remember, keep it retro.